wasn't a bad decision, but it was a, $300 wireless noise canceling microphone headset deal, to make more calls.
That's a smart decision. I'm sorry. I don't know what
Right.
you're saying, but that's a smart
Yeah, no,
decision.
this one was. And
Yeah.
the next one was a $3,000 Propstream list of a ton of properties in Detroit. And I
Okay.
knew nothing. I knew nothing about Detroit. I'm like,
So
well,
you go from Flint to Detroit.
I know. Yeah, that was not a smart decision. And yeah, I blew that $6,000 so fast.
With you going through this deal, you obviously closed it. You made some money,
hmm
right? Okay. How did you utilize that money going forward? Did you go into the next deal? Did you how did you repeat this process?
I didn't. Um,
Okay.
first thing I bought, it wasn't a bad decision, but it was a, $300 wireless noise canceling microphone headset deal, to make more calls.
That's a smart decision. I'm sorry. I don't know what
Right.
you're saying, but that's a smart
Yeah, no,
decision.
this one was. And
Yeah.
the next one was a $3,000 Propstream list of a ton of properties in Detroit. And I
Okay.
knew nothing. I knew nothing about Detroit. I'm like,
So
well,
you go from Flint to Detroit.
I know. Yeah, that was not a smart decision. And yeah, I blew that $6,000 so fast. Um, I remember, yeah, I bought a $1,000 car because I was using my mom's car at the time,
Hmm.
and old rusted out Buick,
Okay.
and um, a giant batch of Detroit properties. Um, I bought a dialer,
Hmm.
call tools dialer, and I didn't even, you know, know how to set up the dialer or look into it or anything.
Okay.
It's just, yeah, they said after your first deal on YouTube, buy all this
Yep.
stuff, buy more
Okay.
leads,
Yep.
upgrade your setup. And I'm like, well, okay, I'll upgrade my setup. I did, but it was just blew it as fast as I made it. And after that, it was a repeat cycle of finding a house in Flint
Hmm.
and then going and signing the house for whatever the Zillow said it was worth, and then
You went back
nobody
to
bought it.
that.
Well, it
You went
worked.
back. Okay. All right.
I didn't know that's not what you do still, because that's what I did and it worked.
Right.
You know. Um,
So real quick, AM, I what is the best lead gen strategy for beginners? It is not doing what he just said.
exactly. Yeah. Don't go
It
buy
is
a three
not
thousand
doing
dollar
that.
list of a city you've been to one time.
I will answer that question a little bit later, so stay tuned. I will answer it, but I want to get more of a story and kind of going forward. So I just wanted to bring that. But all right, keep going. That miserably failed miserably. All
Oh,
right,
it was
and then
terrible. And yeah, I
okay,
remember I remember her yeah. Yep. Yeah, next moving on in the story then. Next um chapter you could say was one of those terrible Flint houses, the
hmm
terrible deal. It was 11 grand
hmm
purchase, and it was completely, it had burned all the way through on the inside.
okay,
The highest offer I got was 10 grand, you know,
okay,
so it wasn't terribly far off, um,
yeah,
but it was
yep. I mean,
percentage wise.
you can't get under if you. if you can't sell it for more than you have it under contract for, there's nothing you can do,
Right.
you know. So did you try to go renegotiate a little bit to get the price down?
I did, but he wasn't budging,
Got it. All right.
And yeah, that one's it led to a good path because that one, um, yeah, someone, um, an agent saw it on Facebook, saw that
Okay.
it was, you know, um, and they brought a buyer to it,
Okay.
and then when the buyer left, the guy looks at me. He's a real nice guy,
Hmm.
and I still, work with him on some stuff to today. Um, but he looks at me and says, "Listen, I know you're excited about this, but you have a bad deal. When it doesn't sell, call me." And he gives me his business card.
Got it.
Which was kind of sharp, but it was a bad deal.
Yep.
And so yeah, basically it doesn't sell. I give him a call, and he's like, I know what you're trying to do. My office
Hmm.
does that quite a bit. It
Okay.
works. Why don't you come in and I show you how to do it?
Okay.
I'm like, well, that's a great idea, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and, from then on, it was a real gradual process of one thing after another I kind of got the hang of, and
Hmm.
then the rest of the side was just a mess still, just winging it and whatever.
Okay.
Um, and um, yeah, I remember finding a seller out in New York through those through a bunch of Flint houses that he had
Yep.
in the for sale by owner part of Zillow, and um, I saw they were under the same owner, and I'm like, well, maybe I can work out like a package deal or something,
Right.
you know. And so give that guy a call. These didn't end up selling. Don't get your hopes up in this story, but
Spoiler alert.
yeah. um, but yeah, got signed an exclusive purchase agreement. It's like, okay, you bring the buyer, you'll get your, like
Got it.
$8,000 a piece or whatever.
Okay.
And um, yeah, I'm like, so I got those, and then went back and called that agent
Hmm.
that I had, you know, gotten good friends with, and then um, just went to him. It's like, okay, I got these deals. How do I sell them?
Right.
And he's like, well, try going and meeting people in person because Facebook wasn't working, and
Okay.
go to local meetups. I'm like, well, do you know of any local meetups? He's like, yeah, the Genesee landlord group.
Hmm.
And then so bought a membership there, and um, went with my grandma, and still go with my grandma, 'cause she still has a lot of rentals and stuff. Um,
Okay.
and then made a printout flyer,
Hmm.
in Microsoft Word, just typed out the address and then the information on each property, and made a bunch of little books with stapled together pages.
Some old
And
school. All right.
yeah, yeah. And then made a bunch of them, and then went there. This is the first time I went there. Went there early, and um, laid out these books, like three of
Hmm.
them, on every table in the um, building.
Okay.
And went and sat back down. And, my phone number was on each one of them too, so just sat back down and waited for a call. uh, and
Okay.
yeah, and then eventually the guy that um, runs the group there, or the president of it, his name is Ed Constable. Shout out to Ed. Um,
All right.
and
What up, Ed?
um, but yeah, he picks up the paper, And he's like, "So who brought these wholesale deals?" And I turned so red.
You just
And
wanted to go in the corner, right? And just
yeah,
kind of like,
yeah. Well, because at that time, like I was still under the impression like nobody can know it's a wholesale deal. Don't tell the seller,
right,
don't
right.
tell the buyer, you know.
Yep.
So he, like I don't know how he knew, but he did. He probably saw that they were listed on Zillow.
Okay.
And so yeah, he's like, "So who brought these wholesale deals?" And red little me in the corner. It's like me, you know.
Yep.
And then completely opposite reaction of what I thought he was gonna give. He goes like, "That's really cool," you know. It's like, yeah, and then he's like, "Yeah, everyone, look at these wholesale deals, check through them. This is exactly what we want in this group, young guys coming into the business, just taking action and doing it, and I'm like,
You're like,
okay, like,
whew.
yeah, I'm not as red now, but okay,
Yeah.
you know,
All right.
um, yeah, I'm none of them bought them because they still weren't the best deals. Um,
Right.
and yeah, he comes up to me afterwards and um, we exchanged numbers and he's like, "Yeah, this is awesome. I'm so glad you're here,
Mm-hmm.
here with your grandma too, and like,
Yeah.
just getting into the business on your own, you know, taking the action like you said, you know."
Most definitely. Yeah. That's awesome. So, you know, as going through there, and because he gave you a good reaction, now probably everybody in there be like, "Hey, you know what? These aren't good deals for me. They're not, whatever. But can I get on your list? You know,
Exactly. Yep.
everybody's like, "Can I get on your list? Can I get on your list?
Yeah,
Huh? Huh?
bunch of
Huh?"
people, yeah, because they were almost good deals kind of
Right.
thing,
Okay.
you know. So I did get a lot of people. It's like, "Hey, send me your next ones." I'm like, "Okay, I'll put you on my buyers list," because I did know what that was at the time.
All right.
And um yeah, and then it was a long time after that before I made another sale,
Okay.
you know.
So what were
Just
you
more
doing in the
trial and error, you
Yeah,
know.
so you were just kind of taking action, seeing what works.
Right.
You kind of like you have a little bit of direction, but you're like mainly throwing darts at a board to see what sticks, right?
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and it's not a bad situation, but it's like, all right, this is, you kind of still got to formulate a plan. And then, tell me a little bit about how you started to actually think about this because I know we haven't brought it up yet, but I did start I did a beta test for a wholesaling coaching program. And I actually held interviews for the people to join. And Jordan was one of those people. So tell me a little bit about where were you when you came to me?
Yeah. No, that was yeah. Um that was, just a repeating pattern ever since, you know,
Hmm.
I kind of knew what I was doing, sort of,
Yep.
and it was just a repeating pattern of, saving up, so much money and then dropping it in programs to try and learn a little bit more each time, you know,
Yep.
over and over. Um, and then, yeah, the big thing I got from you was um, instead of winging it, you know,
Yep.
the flow chart was the biggest one, you know,
Okay, that's awesome.
yeah. Um, just lay out the plan and then stick to
Hmm.
that plan instead of try the newest thing that you see on the internet, you know.
Shiny object syndrome.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good word for it.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, just yeah, exactly. It's went from, oh well, I'll try this and see if it works. Try it once, run out of
Hmm.
money, quit. Okay, deem it not workable or whatever. Like,
Right.
you know,
So by the way, we got about 3 weeks in, and unfortunately, I had to stop it for a moment because I had some personal stuff happen. My mother passed, and I will continue it, but in the meantime, after everything was happening, I'm getting these calls from Jordan like, "Hey, I got this deal. I got this deal. Oh, I got this deal. I got this deal over here. Hey, it's sold over here. Blah blah blah." So, how did you go from that to now all of a sudden you got 11 deals or whatever, and they sold? It's not
uh-huh.
like they didn't sell, like they sold. So,
Yeah. I
now
canceled one contract this year so far.
that is awesome.
Um, yeah, no, big improvement from winging it.
Huge improvement.
Uh-huh.
So, and by the way, he came to
Um,
me. We started that in December. Okay. Beginning of December. All right. I remember that. So yeah. So tell me, what changed? Obviously, you had some of that, and you just said that the flow chart, the system, having a plan and sticking to that. So how did you implement that, and what did you do differently?
yeah. Well, it actually started back in July, to lead
Okay.
up to answering that question.
Awesome.
Um, yeah, back in July, um, I just made a post. I was out of money again, blew it all on real estate programs. And,
Yep.
you know, uh, so I'm like, well, I need gas money somehow.
All right.
And so, yeah, I had already gained some connections in real estate.
Mm-hmm.
Most, people in the landlord group at the time, at least, that would consistently go, knew the name Jordan Smith. It's like, oh yeah, that's the kid that comes with his grandma. Um, but yeah, anyways, posted on the Facebook group, for that group, like, hey, I grew up with painting my grandpa's rental properties.
Mm-hmm.
If anyone needs a painter, I could use the extra cash. Is basically
Okay.
how I worded it. And then that was at like 3 a.m. Sunday night, and then woke up um, Monday morning, and I had 25 messages from different people looking for paint. And
Okay.
so then I called Ed, and I said, Ed, I need your help here. I accidentally started a painting business and I don't know what to charge people. And he's like, you did what? So after laughing at me about it for like 10 minutes, he's like, he's, explained how to, yeah, how to, how painters price stuff per square foot or
Yep.
whatever. And, went over all that. That's kind of off topic. But basically, yeah, I had used that accidental paint company startup,
Mm-hmm.
built it into a actual thing to where I was actually getting some money from it. And then
Mm-hmm.
um, I saw your post, and I was like, "Hey, I'm looking for people to start this free course or whatever, um, to test it out for the course I'm making." I'm like, "Okay,
Mm-hmm.
all right." So I sent a message, "Hey, I'll do it," or whatever I said.
Yep.
Um, and then yeah, that was beginning of December, and um, yeah, after the first couple, classes,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I'm like, okay, I think what I was missing was consistency.
Yep.
And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to, you know, use December with this painting to
Mm-hmm.
raise um, basically a cushion budget. And then,
Okay.
um, so I can have enough money to buy the real estate programs. I planned on
Mm-hmm.
2 months worth. I figured if
That's
I
awesome.
actually
Yeah.
put in the effort for it, then it'll work.
And this whole time, You don't have a full-time job. You're working on your own, right?
Right. I used to have a job. I was making cakes at Meijer, and
Okay.
yeah, and then started this painting business. Um,
Hmm.
and yeah, I couldn't do that anymore because painting paid more, you
Yep.
know.
That's
Um,
awesome.
yeah, and then yeah, basically used December to like build up the cushion for it and
Hmm.
the ground groundwork, planning of it, and then um, yeah, around Christmas, I'm like, okay, you know, it should be all set. Like this is
Hmm.
the last time I'm gonna blow my money on this stuff. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But
Right.
I'm sure, you know. But either way, I'm gonna not be able to say I didn't do the best I could at it. And actually
Right.
give it a real shot.
Yep.
And um, yeah, basically started January 2nd, day after New Year, because plan was to start January 1st, but I forgot that was New Year. And
Yep.
um,
Everybody's hungover, so you know.
yeah, they didn't want to answer the phone anyways.
Right.
Um, but yeah, started January 2nd and just called every day. I between Christmas and New Year, I had set up the dialer and
Okay.
um, I guess somehow it saved my information of like previous stuff I've called or whatever.
And
Um,
what dialer are you
it's
using?
batch dialer.
Batch dialer.
Hmm.
Also, link in the description. I get a 7-day free trial, I believe, on batch dialer. So, same thing with batch leads as well. So, all right.
Um, and yeah, basically between Christmas and New Year, I set it all up and um, with the intent of starting January, and just doing,
Hmm.
you know, either 100% or 0%, like, basically taking the action and doing it.
Yep.
And um, yeah, January 2nd, I'm like, okay, I'm done painting.
Hmm.
Like, yeah, I'm using whatever I
So,
raised and I'm putting it back into this. If it works, then
so after
I'm keeping
after
it up.
January 2nd, you're like, okay, that's it. We're done. Painting business is off to the side, or I'll hire it out if need be,
Hmm.
like subcontract it out. But I'm devoting my time and energy into this wholesaling thing, and I need to get, like you said, consistency.
Right.
Okay. You develop the plan and you're like, all right, this is what we're going to do moving forward. And how was your first, what we'll say the first month in cold calling?
The first month, I didn't get a sale, but
Okay.
I saw the sales,
Got it.
if that makes sense. Like it was, um, you know, yeah, eventually worked it up to where, I was making 1,000 calls a day on a three line dialer. Took about,
Okay.
6 hours ish. And just did that every day because any more, my numbers would have been marked as spam. But
Right.
um, yeah, basically, I was getting people that said, yes, I want to sell,
Hmm.
you know, um, but give me, you know, blank, like give me 2 weeks or give me a month
Right.
or, you know.
So
So
these are
even though
people
I
that
didn't,
these are people you set up in your follow-up list
right,
to keep following up with them.
hmm,
And so they're not immediate sales, but they could lead up to sales later on.
right, which the batch dialer really helped with that because they had it
Okay.
automatically set up to where if you pushed follow up at the end of the call, it
Hmm.
added the contact to a different list,
Okay.
you know. Um, yeah, and then yeah,
And what
making
kind of
calls every
lists were
day and
you?
then
So what kind of lists were you calling? Were
driving for dollar
they
lists.
okay? That's
Yep.
awesome.
Yeah.
And Mr. AM over there, I don't know if you're still with us. you're asking for the best lead gen strategy is exactly what he just said, was a driving for dollars list. In my opinion, you do your own backyard, you drive for dollars, you know that property looks distressed at least, and call the owners. That is the best list that you can get out there.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's also
you
the
would
hardest one
spend,
to get.
it's also the hardest one because you got to spend time to go out there and get that list.
Mm-hmm.
How long were you spending going out driving to get these lists?
I would drive 6 hours in a day.
Okay.
Just, I would plot out a neighborhood,
Mm-hmm.
Start at noon
Mm-hmm.
until, the neighborhood was done.
Yep.
And I would do that and then be on the dialer for 2 days and then drive around, go get more, then be on the
Mm-hmm.
dialer for 2 more days.
Okay.
So it had that consistency basically. And then, yeah, just kind of got the people that, yes, I want to sell for sure. I need to get rid
Mm-hmm.
of the house, desperate sellers basically, but
Yep.
give me so long, or call me back in 2 weeks or a month or whatever.
Right.
And eventually it was, so that kind of told me I'm on the right track.
Mm-hmm.
And so eventually, um, the calling time and then the follow-up time,
Mm-hmm.
caught up with each other to where now, the contracts were coming in, you
Right.
know.
And how
Um,
long did that take?
that was end of, uh, yeah, February 2nd is when I signed
Okay.
the first one. So it took
So
about,
literally 1 month.
right. And
Okay.
then, yeah, and then that first week in February, I had signed 3, put them on the real estate group, and then they all sold, um, you know, the same day I put them up.
Because you were
Um,
actually running your numbers properly, right?
right. Figured out how to find deals that sell.
Right.
Yeah, run the repair costs, run the numbers, you know, and
And
then
that's
those
the
ones,
key thing.
yeah, those
That is the
ones
key.
I even recognize like, okay, I might not know what I'm doing here still.
Mm-hmm.
So then focus on the even lower offer to, for the unforeseen,
Right.
you know, and then, my goal was to just list them for 5 grand above what I got them for. Don't be greedy about it.
Okay.
Just get these sold.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I sell one, I'll have proved the point to myself, basically.
Yep.
And yeah, first one I posted, um, uh, first one I posted, it was 4 hours after, 4 hours from the time I signed it, I had signed with the buyer and they had an EMD in the title company. And
And that is how you do it.
yeah, I'm like,
If
ugh.
you have a good deal, that's exactly what's going to happen.
hmm
Okay. The key thing is if that's not happening, I'm not saying it's a bad deal, but it's not a smoking deal. So it
Right,
sounded like you probably could have pushed that price up a little bit.
for sure.
But what you just said earlier, I don't want to be greedy. I just want to get this going and bring in value. Right.
hmm
Okay.
Yeah, I would
So
rather
that was
do 3 sales for 5 grand each than 1 sale for 10 grand,
right.
you know.
Exactly.
There was once a day that I would pray for you. I'd go and misbehave just so you'd notice too. Sneaking looks up and down from across the room. And damn, what a hell of a view. I